welcome and way to go. If you clicked on the link below and got this, or you're watching it with a co-leader or whatever setting you're in, we are so glad you're here. I'm here with Robbie and Andrew and Dina and all these fine people. Make them feel welcome, would you? Just for a couple minutes today, we're going to talk about how to get your small group launched correctly. Now, some of you are veterans. This is going to be a great review for you. Some of you, you've done a little bit of this, but you need some review. And some of you are like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Well, don't worry. This is not hard. You can do it. In fact, Robbie, how many years have you been leading small groups?
Off and on, I've either led a group or been in a group 15 years.
And Andrew, what about you?
For over 20 years, and I've got 4 kids as well, so that's like a whole nother group in itself.
Wow, so that's like 31 years. How long have you been doing it?
Just about 10, and my first group I led was when I was 16. I was so nervous.
Wow, so that's like 41 years. I've been doing it 42 years. Well, I've been doing it a long time. And you guys, how many here have led a group in here? So what we have is a group of people that have actually walked through this. How many actually have made some mistakes while you were leading a group? How many have had a great group? Your group went great. Yeah. How many had a rougher group? So yeah, okay. So you're going to actually collect some wisdom from this group as you follow through these training sessions. There's going to be the first 5, which are all about getting started right. And then there's another 5 that are about how to maintain that group. So we got you. You could do this. It's actually not difficult. We're calling it the 10 Commandments of Great Groups. Let's go ahead and get right into the first one. You know, I'm the parent of 4 children. The doctors actually told us we couldn't have children. Early on in our marriage, they said, you're not going to have children. But one came anyway. And then we tried and another one came. And we thought, well, 2 miracles, that's enough. And so we gave away all the cribs and all the baby clothes and all the bottles and all the toys. And another one came.
Miracle.
When Emma came home from the hospital, she literally was wearing like Safeway plastic bags for the first 3 days. We were not prepared. So we had some catching up to do. And that's really our first principle. Here's what it says in Proverbs 13:16. A wise man thinks ahead. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to just do a little bit of thinking ahead before your first group. Now here's the key. If you'll put a bunch of energy in at the beginning, this group will have a life of its own, and you'll find that leading is not that hard at all. If you'll get it launched right, it won't rob all your time and be a headache. The opposite's a little bit true too. If you don't get it started right, it can be a little bit challenging to keep the group going. So we want you to fully fuel the first part of the group. That's your first principle. If you're taking notes, write it down. Fuel the launch. Here's some real practical ideas. First thing you want to do is create expectation. A week before, a day before, even the afternoon before, send out some text, send out some phone calls, make that personal connect. It takes a little more time, but if you can kind of go, man, I'm so excited about our gathering tonight. Recruit some people to help you do that, which brings to the second point, which is create ownership. Don't be the sole leader. Get as many people doing as much as you can from the very beginning. Snacks are extremely biblical. Nothing really, truly Holy Ghost happens without some sort of dessert. And by the way, they say this is true in youth ministry. How many do small groups in youth? Yeah, they always have snacks. Listen, it works beyond youth ministry. I don't care if you're leading 80-year-olds. Get snacks there. Yeah. And when you recruit people to bring the snacks, that creates ownership. So you're calling them ahead of time, creating some expectation. You're recruiting people to call and visit and bring snacks. That creates ownership. Third thing you want to do, and so important, is create warmth. Now, most people, they'll just assume that they're not as welcome as they really are. The reason people don't come back to a group is, well, they pretended like they connected, but they really didn't. You want to go over the top and welcoming. You really want to kind of just look people in the eye and say, I'm very glad you're here. You want to let people know that they are super important to that group and to you personally. When you kind of create that individual connect, that's your strongest way to start a group. Here's one more principle.
Kurt, you know what I do? I typically just buy about a $100 gift card for each person, and if it makes them feel welcome, then they want to. No, I'm just kidding. No, actually, what I do is
Robbie makes more money than Pastor Kurt.
No. No, I wish I could do that. I'm a gift giver, so that'd be awesome. But no, what I do is and I think all of us can do this, I think about how would I want to feel walking into a room, a small group for the first time?
That's it.
And I think part of the hard part of this is, as a leader, you're like, how can I help? How can I make them want to come back and be a part of this group? You have to be empowered and know you can do it. You can make every single person in that group feel welcome, accepted, and like they belong there. And when you do that, even when you think inside, I can't, you got to be like the little engine that could, I think I can, because you can. And when you believe that, they'll feel it and they'll come back and it'll be awesome. That's a huge point, Kurt.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So create expectation, create ownership, create warmth, and then prepare the room a little bit. This is one that people kind of miss. And most living rooms are set up for a television, not a small group. And what you want to do is set it up where everyone's knees and noses are on the same level. That seems a little corny, but man, when you make everyone equal, you got to think Knights at the Round Table. When you make everyone equal, it really will pull some people out that normally wouldn't talk. If they're just sitting a little off the circle, I guarantee a lot of people, they won't participate to the level that they need to. And here's one last practical principle. Prepare the discussion. In other words, review the questions. Being a great host is really just about asking question after question after question. You don't have to know the answers. In fact, pretend you know them and just ask another question. And we're going to provide questions for you. You'll have some in there, but by the way, you don't have to just use those. Jump in with your own question. And we're going to actually cover one whole section on how to do that. And then there's one last principle. Stick to a simple format.
Christopher Columbus, he managed to discover America. NASA put a man on the moon. The good news is you can run a small group. It's not that difficult. There's a simple format for it, and here it goes. Number one, get everyone in the room. You've set it up. The smell of coffee is in the air. There's that general awkwardness, but there's a point where you're going to gather people together. And the first point is prayer. Just pray. Set the spiritual atmosphere. Don't ask anyone in the group to pray, because that's kind of awkward if you don't know them. But what to do is just pray yourself. And it doesn't have to be a whole Moses one, up the mountain, down the mountain, stone tablets. Just pray. Thank God that everyone got there, and just encourage them at the beginning. And then make introductions, but facilitate the introductions. Ask them to share, obviously, their name, maybe where they're from, and one interesting thing. No awkward questions or deeply personal questions. And that sort of provides a little bit of banter, just a bonding time at the beginning. And the next one, it's so simple, show the clip. But work on that beforehand, because you know the awkwardness. I'm not a tech person at all. So work on that beforehand. Make sure it's a screen that people can see. You might be watching a computer. You might be really slick and have it linked up to your television. But work on that beforehand, because there's that awkwardness at the beginning if it doesn't work.
You know that old joke that Satan was cast out of heaven and into the church's audio and video equipment. So
Yes.
just know that is kind of a true principle.
You don't want to turn it into a deliverance service, praying exorcism over your technical equipment, okay? And then, so at the end of that, hopefully it will be great teaching, because Kurt and I were involved in it. It was a joke. Sort of to try and recover from that, what you want is then open-ended questions. It's not the typical yes or no. It is, do you have an example? Or how did that make you feel? Or was there a moment in your life? So to really get them talking. And your genius as a host is to go around the room and sort of not preying on people, because some people are quite shy, but is just trying to involve people and get them into the group. And then inclusive prayer at the end. Again, because it's launching the group, it's the first night, maybe you're going to know 2 or 3 people in the room, prime them for prayer. Sometimes what I would do is say, this person's going to open in prayer, and then maybe 1 or 2 of you pray. Now, if 3 or 4 pray, that's great. Let them go for it. You're on a winner from the beginning. What a leader you are. But don't put too much pressure on the group. But then you say, and I'm going to close in prayer. So you got a way of landing this whole thing. And then this is where the magic happens. It's not finished when you close in prayer. It's all about the coffee. I'm from Ireland. Cup of tea. If I'm in your group, a little cup of tea, decaf. Thank you very much. Okay. What you want is just to let people hang out. It's really important. If you're the host, don't be going like this. You know, that's not going to work. The magic happens when everyone is hanging out at the end, where they bond together. And make sure that you don't ever just get held and dominated by one person. You know, maybe there's a needy person in the group, they want to talk to you. Don't get in a corner with them. On the first night, the launch night, get with everybody. Make sure and get that few minutes with every single person. So, hey, just some advice.
Now, Dina, you've led a lot of groups. What would you add to this?
Gosh, I would say one of the best things that you can do is to make sure you have a couple people in your group that you love being around. Yeah. If you can get a couple of your people into this group, you're already going to feel more comfortable about the group. And go up to those people, because they're your people, and say, hey, I need your help. If I'm hanging out with this person early on, make sure that you're looking out for the loner, someone who's not connecting. That way you feel like you're not just going at this alone. You have your people, you have a team. That'd be my tip.
That's great.
Yeah, that's huge. And I try to do something similar where during that discussion time, the hangout time, I try to talk to each and every single person. 3 minutes, 5 minutes, doesn't matter. The hard part for me, I try to remember what we talked about, like what's going on in their lives, so the next week I can come right back to it and go, hey, how's that thing going with your son? That kind of stuff. I don't always remember. I got to work on that. And that's one of the things. But what about you guys? Like, what are things you've done in this setting that you're like, oh, they got to know about it? Yeah.
Judd, right there. Give him a mic.
Hey, my name is Judd, and 19 years ago at Bayside, I went to my very first small group, and it was really a result of the same kind of thing. Ray from the front said, hey, if you're not in a small group, you need to get in one. And pretty much everybody at Bayside then looked around and said, well, none of us are in small groups. So we showed up at the small group, a little apprehensive, first time. Nobody in that group had ever been in the small group before. Nobody knew each other. The person that was leading the group said, well, let's just introduce ourselves, and went to the first person and said, give like 3 minutes about yourself. Here was the magic. That first person gave some good stuff about their life, but really went down and said, and here's some things that we're kind of struggling with. And that set the tone, and every single person there started doing the same thing. My wife and I get in the car at the end of this, and we're driving home. She's like, I didn't know you were going to go there with that stuff that you were saying. Here's the funny thing. 3 months later, we're best of friends with these people. And every one of those people said the same thing. They got in the car that first night and said, whoa, we didn't know we were going to share that stuff. And everyone did that. 19 years later, they're still our best friends. We're all in different groups.
Powerful.
But amazing stuff took place because we shared some authentic stuff.
That's huge.
Yeah, right here, quickly. Get that mic over there.
Hey, I'm Tyler, and I remember the very first small group I was ever a part of. I was a little nervous to go, but we get there, and our leader has us in the backyard around a bonfire where we're roasting some s'mores. You know, already things are going well. And I remember the very first thing he did was have us go around and we rated our week. 1 through 5. 1 if it wasn't too good, 5 if it was spectacular. And what it did is it allowed everybody in the group just to be honest. You could share something funny, you could share something serious. And I remember going home that night thinking, man, I want to go back. And we met together for the next 6 years in a row, and we started every single session by rating our week.
That's a great tip.
That's a
great
great
tip.
Yeah.
Here and then here. Right over here. Get it over there. All right, Allie, go.
Okay, so one of my first groups I ever led, we ran into some problems of different expectations. So some people were like texting while other people were crying, and some people...
They were sending pictures of them crying.
But wait, you did forgive Dina for doing that, right?
That was supposed to be talked about.
Always. Some people were inconsistent in coming. So when I led a group recently, when I started it, very first meeting, I said, what are some things we can all agree upon as expectations? How often are we coming? What are the time frames we can commit to? What are we going to do with our cell phones while we're here? And by laying those like rules out and allowing it to be a conversation in the beginning, I think it helped everybody to buy in to what we were going to do as a group.
That's great. That's good.
My name is Gil. I remember one of the groups that I thought was just a great group. This couple in the church basically invited folks to come in, and this quiet person, she just ahead of time, the week before, called you and said, I'm so glad you're in the group. We're looking forward to you being here. And you just wanted to go, I want to go to that. And then when you came, she made sure that when she greeted you at the door and said, hey, this is great. We've got a special spot for you. I'm really glad you're here. And just a real personal touch of about 60 seconds made all of the difference. And all of us were feeling very comfortable. And this is your neighbor. And this is the, and that it was just so personal, made all the difference.
Good, that's good.
Huge.
It's great.
Look that over to Brian.
I'm Brian, and I think along with that, Gil, what I would say too is to extend afterwards, to just say, hey, we're so glad that you were part of our group. Hopefully it was a positive experience, and we're looking forward to seeing you next week. If you want to share prayer requests electronically as well, just to do that. But people want to know that they belong and that they matter. And so just extending that welcome afterwards. You've created the hospitable place, but that welcome afterwards is so critical.
John, oh yeah, go ahead, Lisa. Go ahead.
My name is Lisa, and kind of going along what Robbie was saying, one of the ways that I have been able to make sure that I'm touching base with all of the people in my group is to be at the door, at the beginning and at the end, so that I know that when everyone comes in, they're getting hello, and that when they're leaving, I can bless them and even find out how I can be praying for them throughout the week. So people in my group know that I'm just at the door, and so I'm never kind of cornered and monopolized, by one person for a long time. So
Let's get one more.
My name's John. When I first became a youth pastor, I led a small group and brought the kids together. And you know how it is as a youth group. Some of the kids come reluctantly, and so we had some of those guys come. And one of the guys fell asleep while I was leading the small group on the floor in front of me. So Laura and I went home, and I was talking to her, and she goes, are you going to call his parents and tell him? I'm like, no, I'm going to try to be exciting and make the group fun enough that he stays awake. And it really is an important rule, is that really learn to gauge the group and see who's engaged and how excited they are. And even now, I ask people after the group, and I don't do it in a group setting all the time, but someone, how did that go? Is there anything we could do better? Are you getting it? Is there some things we could do differently? And always try to find ways to make the group better. Don't assume just because you felt it went well that it did. You want to get some feedback.
Oh, John, are you done?
John.
We fell asleep. Sorry, Hey, let's wrap this up. Here's the big idea. That's a lot of great information. And the beautiful thing about these teachings is you can look it over again, get it all in you. Lots of great advice there, but I want to leave you with a big thought. You can do it. You really can do this. And the truth of the matter is, if you'll put a little energy in at the beginning, this thing will take on a life of its own, and you'll see a lot of life transformation. So, great job. We're glad you watched this. Let's give them one more encouragement. See you later.